Kiva stopped and stared in surprise at the empty space in the market that the fine wine wagon normally occupied. Kiva had never known of a market day that the Fine family had missed. Kiva had never given much thought to the wine merchants until their handsome son Morkant had sought her out. Morkant was a year or two older than Kiva and carried himself with an air of self-assurance and bravado that many of the maidens in Wheatvale found just as intoxicating as the wine that his parents sold. Morkant was striking with his blonde hair that seemed to radiate a pumpkin orange when in the sun. He also dressed stylishly and in a way that told the world that he was to inherit the family business without speaking a word. Morkant had been calling on Kiva since not long after she had been approached by Talon. He had swept in and fawned over her in a way that had made Kiva's head spin. The addicting part of Morkant's flirtation was that he appeared to have less of a reputation as a ladies' man than Talon. Yet there was still something that would not let Kiva fully embrace the young winemaker. "I see that my opponent has fled the field of battle," a male voice proclaimed. Kiva and Amabel looked up to find the miller and honorary knight Braden Talon approaching them. Talon was dressed in a cloak, tunic, and pants that were made from expensive cloth that had been dyed bright and vibrant colors. The miller's pale blonde hair appeared to have been freshly washed and his beard had been painstakingly styled. He met Kiva's surprised expression with a smile and a look in his eyes that told Kiva he was savoring looking at her a bit too much. When he came to a stop in front of Kiva he bowed as if devoted to her. "Friend Morkant's loss is surely my gain," Talon smiled after glancing in the direction of the vacant lot. "Oh, forgive me, friend Amabel, I was so overcome that I forgot my manners," he greeted Amabel dramatically. "You are forgiven," Amabel giggled. "Sweet, fair Kiva, can you forgive my lack of manners to your friend?" Talon returned his attention toward Kiva. "If she does not fault you, neither will I," she replied and attempted to look disinterested in spite of her blush. "Such charity!" Talon gasped reverently. "'Twill be an honor if you would join me for refreshment. I have packed such delicacies for a picnic. Just say the word and my coach can take you to wherever you desire," Talon pressed. Kiva knew if Morkant's sister had beheld Talon's behavior she knew that the Ice Maiden would surely have fallen off of her horse in shock. Kiva was not without those that were willing to woo her. It was that there were none by whom she wanted to be wooed. "Master Talon, your offer is most generous, but I must refuse it. Market day comes but once a week and there are things that I must attend to," Kiva replied. It seemed as though a shock went through Talon that made him stand up straight. For a half a second his features hardened and then returned to their normal warm pliability. "Forgive me. My boldness can carry me away. Perhaps some other time. I am sure that we will meet again later. I may even be able to offer you a gift that you will accept." Talon turned with a bow and walked away. "Kiva, what have we just witnessed?" Amabel whispered. "I don't know. Something cold seemed to be behind those last words," Kiva replied. Kiva had been deeply flattered by Talon, but his parting words almost made her scared of him. The two women strolled through the marketplace. The merchants and traders all tried to pretend that life had returned to normal, but was that good? The cloud of fear and dread of the reunified savants and their cruelty had returned. Men and women who claimed to worship Sava feared the war god and his bloody priests as much as the Eterns. Even the great conjurers who perched in the trees seemed to suspect that the future for Wheatvale may be dire. "Perhaps the savant will stop calling our language imperf," Amabel speculated as she examined corn that had been stacked for display on a produce cart. "Then they'd miss a chance to degrade us," Kiva sniffed. "I just pray that the rumor I heard yesterday was false," Amabel began in a tone tainted with fear. "What did you hear?" Kiva stepped closer. "I heard that Valtros, the high priest of Sava, was planning on offering a bride to Sava," Amabel whispered in a grave tone. "Valtros is one of the lead monsters." Kiva shuddered at the thought of the ceremony that ended with the murder of a maiden. It was a ceremony that all unmarried girls in the duchy feared. The sound of horses, clanging armor, and marching men captured the attention of all in the market square. Surrounding the market square were armed soldiers from the temple. Mounted on horseback was Sir Hemlock, the head of the temple guard. Sir Hemlock was commander of the Savant army and Emperor Vix's champion. As such he was dressed in the finest armor that could be found. Hemlock's shield featured the image of a monstrous spider and an axe, the crest of Axe Commander Vix, the self-proclaimed ruler of Wheat Vale. Hemlock was flanked by knights who proudly held up the dark blue and grey banners of the Emperor. Citizens of Wheat Vale, as you know, we are at the end of a war that threatened to mar the great perfection of Sava. Out of his mercy our beloved leader, Emperor Vix, has accepted the Priest of Rude's surrender. We are here to carry out the terms of the surrender. All imperfs and eternals present are now property of the Savant Empire. Do not resist or you will live to regret it. Hemlock's voice boomed over the crowd. The crowded market square quickly erupted into chaos. Men and women attempted to escape but were stopped by soldiers. Savant citizens quickly subdued anyone that they knew to be an emperor for eternal. They used their neighbors in a futile attempt to barter for their own safety and social status. One of the soldiers lunged toward Kiva with outstretched hands. With a shriek, Kiva splintered her parasol over her attacker's head, knocking his helmet off and sending him falling to the ground with a moan. Before the stunned man could recover, she took flight. With gown in hand and her long legs in motion, Kiva bolted toward the tavern hoping to find somewhere to hide. Lorona was one of the tavern wenches at the Enlightened Swine. Lorona could have been attractive if her chosen profession and drink had not taken a toll on her. She had noticed the soldiers advancing on the town square and had ventured to the door. If the men were out working for Vix, they would soon be in the tavern with a mighty thirst and coin to spend. Lorona would quench the thirst of all and be heavy in coin before the night was over. Even though Lorona was a savant by birth, the announcement had taken her by complete surprise. Like many savants, she enjoyed far more favor than the Eterns and those that were not deemed worthy by the priests of Sava. Lorona watched enviously as some of her fellow savants jealously sought favor and wondered how she might elevate her station without risking her own safety. It was then that she saw the carpenter's daughter fleeing in her direction. "This way, m'lady." Lorona beckoned. Kiva quickly bounded into the tavern and followed the wench into a room that was hidden behind a bear pelt that hung on the wall. With great speed Lorona opened a large oak wardrobe that had recently been added. The wardrobe was deep and tall, it was the ideal hiding place. With a grateful nod Kiva stepped into the wardrobe and slipped behind the cloaks and gowns that hung inside. With a crooked smile the wench closed the doors and Kiva heard the lock being latched from the outside. Trapped in the dark, Kiva listened. The sound of chaos that filled the square was softened by the clay walls of the tavern. As she locked the wardrobe door, the possibilities began to flood into Lorona's mind and ignited her imagination. She had long wanted an alluring girl that she could put to work in the tavern. Lorona wanted to be the hostess while her servant provided service and entertainment to the tavern's guests. Without a doubt the carpenter's daughter could fill the role nicely. The girl was winsome with gentle curves and a level of refinement that not many of her customers were used to. With such a girl as chattel Lorona could move well beyond the tavern. The possibilities were staggering. However, her joy was cut short when she remembered Dand, the girl's father. Dand Woodwright was a large and powerful man who was fond of home, hearth, and family. He was also well liked in the community. If he or his allies learned that Lorona had taken his daughter, there would be dire consequences for her. Lorona would have to get rid of her prize quickly, silently, and in a way that would not lead the angry father and his friends back to her. It was then that she thought of Hemlock. The knight had just entered the tavern. Perhaps he could help her. Quickly. "This way, Sir Hemlock," the wench's voice echoed. "What do you have, Lorona?" Hemlock pressed impatiently. His tone sounded as if he were humoring an underling of no value. "I have a fancy lace doll that tried to hide from you and your men. I think she's worth 2 gold coins." "You can't sell what was a piece barter," Hemlock sighed. 2 coins is just the starting price. The girl I bagged is a daughter of a goodly family. She galloped in here wrapped in indigo. Common hens aren't draped in such finery. You won't haggle your way out of this," Lorona snorted. "Is that so?" Hemlock's voice carried the spark of renewed interest. "I'll give you 1 silver and no more." Her finery is worth more than that, Lorona pouted. Who is your indigo maiden's family? What illustrious lineage are you trying to peddle? Hemlock inquired. She's the daughter of the carpenter, Lorona replied. Woodwright's daughter? Well, that is a fair price indeed. I will change my offer. 1 gold coin and a round of drinks for my men. If you refuse, I will take you and the girl. Or better yet, I will take the girl, make sure the carpenter finds out your part in this, and leave you to face his wrath. You drive a hard bargain. I accept, Lorona surrendered. Kiva had listened to her freedom being bartered with disbelief. She had been a free woman when she left her parents' home this morning. Now she and many others had been reduced to the status of property that could be squabbled over as if they were unfeeling objects. Lord help me, protect me please, Kiva prayed silently and desperately as she heard the latch being unlocked and the hinges squeak as the door was being opened. As Kiva's eyes adjusted to the light, she found Lorona, Sir Hemlock, and several soldiers standing outside. Hemlock had his helmet closed and his right hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Step out, Poppet. Let us see what the Empire's newest servant looks like, he coaxed. Slowly Kiva mustered the strength to obey. Tears began to stream down her cheeks as she labored to slide aside the cloaks and step outside. From the look of that bead necklace and pendant, I'd say she is an eternal, Lorona observed. Kiva momentarily shifted her gaze toward the treacherous Staven wench. May God have mercy on you, she squeaked. Spoken like a proper eternal, Lorona chortled. Hemlock turned toward his men. CK her with her sisters. Remember, they are to be untouched, he ordered. The guards took Kiva into custody and treated her with great respect and relative gentleness. None of them wanted to run afoul of Hemlock. Hemlock turned to Lorona and dropped a coin in her hand.